a couple days ago, we talked about concubines in China.
That's right.
All right, female concubines, mistresses that rich business people in China have been having. And there has also been an increase of male gigolos in China.
Oh,
And
how you
one
like them apples?
This is a really crazy story, and I love it. One of our listeners, Manuel, sent it to us. He lives in China, and he thought he'd give us a little inside knowledge about it. But anyway, more and more women are resorting to male prostitutes for flirtation and for a good time, and sometimes sex. But mostly they want someone who's attentive and shows them a good time.
Now, this story's awesome because, first of all, women get to do strike back, right?
Oh, yeah.
And this is a story out of The Guardian in the UK, but it's covering China, obviously. They're mainly talking about Beijing, although Manuel had some things to say about Shanghai and how it's similar in some ways. And now it's also rich wives, of course, of some of these husbands. And so while their husbands are out messing around with their concubines, they're like, well, why shouldn't I do strike back? And they go get guys. That's one funny part of the story. Mm-hmm. The second funny part of the story is what you just mentioned, Anna, which is that mainly they're just seeking attention.
Right.
You know? I know guys do it sometimes too with like geisha girls where they're not having sex, but their woman like waits on them hand and foot. But 9 out of 10 times the guy's looking for something else, right? Mm-hmm. And it's so funny that the women are just like, oh, pay you a good-looking guy to just sit around and talk to them.
Right, and flirt with them and stuff.
Right.
First of all, most of them are, as the male gigolos say, because a couple of them were quoted in this article, they say that most of the women that are their customers or whatever are unattractive housewives. So that's unfortunate. However, there is an increase in younger women looking for these male gigolos. And as I said before, they're looking for some attention, they're looking for some fun, and it's a must sometimes when they're going out on a girls' night.
Oh, well, it's a must, of course. You've got to have a couple of gigolos. Otherwise, what are you doing? Right? And one of the guys, I don't forget if it was quoted in that story or something, or the email that Manuel sent, said, look, it's a win-win for me. I don't have to take any clients. Mm-hmm. I go and I act as they have a word for it, by the way. It's called ducks.
Right. Ducks or yazis.
Yazi. So he's like, I go and act like a duck. Well, you know, if it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck and it fucks like a duck, I guess it's a duck. Mm-hmm. But anyway, sorry. So obvious. All right. So anyway, he goes and he says, look, if a hot girl comes up to me and wants to pay me $100, that's basically the rate here, to chat for the night, he's like, what's the harm? If she wants to pay the higher rate, which is about $300 to have sex, he's like, win-win. This is like the greatest deal on earth. Right? Now, some of these ducks have pimps. Mm-hmm. So they crack the whip a little bit, and they're like, oh, I don't care if it's an older housewife or not, but you're going to go quack away over there. And so that's a little different situation. But apparently it's really prevalent. And, you know, why not? Why not, right?
And it seems really acceptable.
What's good for the goose is good for the duck? I can go all night long.
I know you can. But let's stop for a minute.
Okay.
But anyway, one 26-year-old girl who's quoted in the article talks about how she has a husband, and her husband is aware that she's spending his money on these male gigolos.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
And it's understandable because, listen to this, they have an understanding that it's just a sexual thing and not a love-related thing.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it was. I love it. I mean, I love that they're open about it, and it's not something that's done behind closed doors. There's a real understanding about it.
Yeah. Look, if I don't know if it's for me, right? But if they are on board and he's like, look, I'm going to go get a couple of girls over there and you go grab a couple of ducks, have at it, Hoss. You know, it seems like a fine little arrangement. And I like the equality here. You know, it satisfies my inner lib.
Right.
And why shouldn't women get a piece?
What's really interesting about this, though, is...
Oh, I'm sorry, Anna, for interrupting. I will tell you one thing, though. If the guy's not getting any and he doesn't have a concubine and she's spending your money without telling you on all those ducks, then we got an issue in America, or even in China in this case. Mm-hmm. That would be unfortunate, okay, because that's not equality. That's terrible.
Right. And the male gigolos, most of their customers are actually tourists from Taiwan or Hong Kong.
That's interesting too. Oh, one other interesting fact. I'm glad you reminded me of that. So some of the ducks are local grown, although they come from Manchuria, where the guys are taller. Mm-hmm. Apparently that's attractive, and there's more unemployment there. So they're like, perfect. Okay, ship those guys in here to work as gigolos. But then here's a fun little twist. Some of the ducks are from Europe America, and Africa. Okay, so that's awesome too. Why shouldn't the women get a choice? You know, if the guys get a choice, they're like, should I go with an African tonight? A Manchurian? A Manchurian candidate, perhaps, for the night? Please, somebody stop me. Okay. Or maybe just, white guy from America. Think about it. Could be a good living. I'm not saying anything.